The anime begins with little Akegami receiving advice from his father. No one can live alone, and just as it is good to have many friends, it is also good to have many lovers. And although that seemed great to him when he was 5 years old, Akegami understood that advice when he grew up and does the opposite of what his father told him. He doesn't even want to look at girls and reminds himself that he doesn't meet women. Everyone who knows his father thinks that he is a womanizer like him, so Akegami vowed to be single forever. But one night, while he was returning home, he bumps into a girl, and for the first time he feels attracted to a woman, so he runs away from her. But even in his bed, he can't stop thinking about her. The next day, he feels that his desires have been awakened and agrees to go to a mixer with his friends, drink all night, and watch the girls while they work out. The whole life that Akegami had built collapses, he loses his job, he starts failing in school, and all that because he can only think about girls, so he makes a drastic decision. He decides to be a monk. His uncle supports his decision and gets him accepted into the Mikazuki temple. But when he arrives at the temple already dressed as a monk, the one who opens the door is the girl with whom he fell in love at first sight, and he falls in shock thinking that it is an illusion of his desires. And to make matters worse, she thinks he's a monk, so she runs to change her clothes. And when she comes back, she introduces herself. Her name is Yuzuki, and he sees that she has her stolen and falls off because it's poorly adjusted. So he tries to run away from her, but the girl chases him with almost no clothes. When she catches up with him, he can't take it anymore and asks her to marry him. After that, Yuzuki takes him inside to drink tea and tells him that the head priest is not there and they told her that he would come tomorrow, so Akegami thinks it was a miscommunication with his uncle. Suddenly, she asks him what his interests are and he runs away again to the garden because he thinks it's an admissions test and he thinks he'll fail it because he already asked her to marry him. Meanwhile, Yuzuki calls the priest Kiki and tells her that the man she chooses for her first arranged marriage date came a day earlier and she doesn't know what to do, so she asks Kiki to return to the temple. But Kiki says that she is with her suitor right now and cuts off her call. At that moment, another girl named Tsukuyo appears and Yuzuki tells her that there is a ghost, and to make matters worse, Akegami enters again, badly injured because he fell into an empty cistern trying to save a kitten. So the girls get scared and run away, but not before kicking him. He starts chasing them and a girl who was in the hallway with the kitten faints when she sees so much commotion. She is courage. Meanwhile, in another room, Kagura and Mia are painting and Mia goes out to scold the girls for being noisy, but she is bumped by Akegami. After that, Akegami finally gets to where Yuzuki and Tsukuyo are. He wants to explain to them what happened, but Yuzuki thinks that he is a spirit and attacks him, making him faint. At night, Kiki returns and tells them that everything was a misunderstanding by Akegami's uncle. He enrolled his nephew in this temple, not knowing that it is now a nunnery. Kiki proposes that he stay at the nunnery to train to be a monk since she is attracted to the idea of having a man work for free, but he does not want to and leaves. Akegami goes to the bus stop and is disheartened when he sees that the buses have stopped passing because it is night, and suddenly, Yuzuki appears behind him and invites him to spend the night at the nunnery. Although he refuses, she sits down to talk with him and asks him how he could ask her to marry him if they only met twice, and he turns red as a tomato. Then they both formally introduce themselves, but when she hears his name, she takes him back to the temple. It turns out that Akegami's father stole a lot of money from the temple, so Yuzuki says that he will pay with his body. Akegami and the girls cannot believe what they heard and starts to complain, and Yuzuki realizes her mistake and says that he will work for free to pay the debt. After that, Yuzuki takes Akegami to show him the temple, and the girls get angry when they see that the two are getting along and want to separate them. Then Kiki tells them that one of them should use him, and when he falls, they can throw him out of the temple, and says that the girl with the most voluptuous body is the one who should do it. So they all agree that Tsukuyo is the chosen one. The next day, Akegami gets up at 5 a.m. to clean the temple and make breakfast for the girls. But Yuzuki also wakes up at that time, and he almost burns the breakfast from admiring her body. Tsukuyo starts her day trying to seduce Akegami, and shows him a little of her, making him agree to do all the tasks she imposes on him. The problem is that he does everything well and quickly. So she forces him to wear light work clothes and says that he should start his monk training. But since they don't have waterfalls, she uses a hose to wet him while he meditates, and since it's very cold, he barely reacts when he sees Yuzuki in her school uniform. For Akegami, that's quite a victory. Tsukuyo decides it's time for her next plan. She texts Yuzuki to go to the bathroom in 5 minutes, and then enters the bathroom while Akegami is bathing. She wants him to pounce upon seeing her voluptuous body, but everything goes wrong. She stumbles from embarrassment, and so does he. And the worst thing is that he falls on top of her, kissing her. And just at that moment, Yuzuki walks in and sees them kissing. Tsukuyo starts to apologize, but Yuzuki tells him to get out. For the rest of the day, Yuzuki evades Tsukuyo, because just seeing her made her remember Akegami's body, and tells Tsukuyo that she already knew about her plan. Tsukuyo feels bad for what she did to Akegami, so she wants to apologize, but he already left the temple. To Akegami's bad luck, his old apartment was already rented and the owner threw away his things, so he is now homeless. Later, Yuzuki finds him living in a box under the bridge, and she starts to scold him for leaving, but he can't even look at her because it's raining and her clothes are see-through. Even so, she scolds him for not relying on others and says that no one can live alone and invites him to return to the temple. And not only that, Tsukuyo also came for him and apologizes. When they arrive at the temple, Mia faints when she sees Akegami because she thought they have already gotten rid of him. The two girls go to bathe while Akegami begins to make dinner, and Courage helps him and tells him that Yuzuki is dumb and useless. And Akegami begins to daydream, saying that he wants to get to know her better, but is overheard by Courage and accuses him of being a... He immediately denies it, but she tells him that being pure is not wrong because he is human and even Buddha had children. Akegami is surprised by her words, and Courage says that Yuzuki was different before, even a little... So he thanks her for awakening that side of her again. And to make up for it, she goes to open the door to the bathroom where Yuzuki and Tsukuyo are bathing, but he tries to stop her and ends up opening it anyway, earning himself a beating for being a peeping Tom. The next day, Mia says that she will take care of Akegami and proposes him, and to the other surprise, Akegami likes the idea. So Yuzuki, Tsukuyo, and Courage leave the temple so they can resolve their differences. Then Mia tells him that they will have a samurai sword duel. First, he doesn't take it seriously, so she almost hurts him. In her next attack, he throws the sword because he doesn't want to hurt her and plans to stop the sword with his hands, but he ends up grabbing her breasts, and Mia can't take the embarrassment, and Akegami wins the duel. Kagura says that Mia should be penalized and show them a book of ancient penances, and she chooses a very scandalous one for her, but Akegami says he wants something else and points it at Mia. She thinks it refers to her, but Akegami wants the book of penances and tells her that he wants to try many things at night, and Mia thinks that he wants to sleep with her and runs away. At night, Mia goes to Akegami's room to serve her penalty and climbs on top of him, and although she's red like a tomato, she gives him permission to do whatever he wants with her body. He thinks that this is a dream and almost falls into temptation, until he sees Kagura recording them and realizes that Mia misinterpreted her penalty and tells her that he only wanted to try penances from the book, and Mia runs away red and humiliated. Then, Akegami goes to Mia's room to clear things up, but Kagura locks them in and they are forced to talk. He says that he was surprised to see her act so bold with him, and she says that she is really like that, but she came to Japan to change her personality. Since she was a child, her mother told her that she had to have many lovers like her. Suddenly, Akegami starts crying and says that he's in the same situation, and Mia thinks that this is fate, and he says that they should be allies in the search for enlightenment, even if their desires get in the way. At that moment, Kagura finally opens the door for them and says that she has the perfect penance for them, playing Twister. The next day, Yuzuki gets angry when she sees Akegami and Mia with their limbs tangled, sweaty, and blushing from the effort of playing Twister all night. So she punishes Akegami and forces him to meditate in repentance. After that, Kiki reminds Yuzuki that her arranged marriage meeting is today, and Yuzuki gets desperate because she had forgotten and she is late. So Akegami takes her running to the bus station, but the bus is gone. Seeing that this is something very important to her, Akegami first gets a motorcycle to take her, then they get on a truck that will take them closer to the place of the date, and he will help her put on the appropriate kimono. After changing her clothes, Akegami steals the truck and takes Yuzuki to the temple where she will meet her date. But a nun sees his clothes and thinks he is a temple monk and puts him to work. Meanwhile, Yuzuki finally meets Hon, the man she is supposed to marry. He is surprised when he realizes that she is young, and she tells him about the situation at the temple, but she is distracted when she sees Akegami working there. Akimetsu realizes that he is making her nervous, so he goes to work somewhere else, but the nun tells him that the matchmaker is sick and he will replace him. Akegami knows that this meeting is important to Yuzuki, so he is willing to play his role as Cupid well. So he begins the date by asking Hon how he likes to spend his time, but with each answer, Akegami imagines himself with Yuzuki and finally faints when Hon says he wants to have 10 children. Hon tells her that he already knew that this guy is her friend, and Yuzuki remembers that since she was a child she was taught not to lie, so she confesses to Hon that she doesn't plan to get married. She just wants to be engaged for 3 years until she can become a nun and take charge of the Mikazuki temple. But Hon lists the reasons why the Mikazuki temple should be closed, and Akegami hears this and asks him to help them, and Hon makes him see that if the temple closes, his debt will be cancelled. But Akegami says that the temple and Yuzuki has saved him twice. Hon gets serious and says that taking care of a temple is difficult, but Akegami says that he will be by Yuzuki's side. So Hon makes Akegami swear that he will make her happy, stay with her in sickness and in health, and they will build a happy family, and Akegami swears fervently. After that, Hon leaves and the nun called Oba scolds him because he was supposed to convince Yuzuki to close the temple. Meanwhile, Yuzuki and Akegami have difficulty returning to the temple. Since they have missed the bus, the train, there are no taxis, and her cell phone is out of battery. So they have no choice but to spend the night in a love hotel. Akegami tries to stay calm, but Yuzuki gets carried away and gets excited about all the things the couple's room offers until she sees the movie catalog and sends him to bathe. When he finishes his bath, she goes to bathe too, but she is blushing. It turns out that while Akegami was bathing, she started watching a Biza movie, so Akegami debates what he should do. In the end, he decides to listen to his devil side and chains himself so she can use him as she pleases. She sees him chained and prefers to put him a mask over his eyes so that he sleeps chained. The next day, while Tsukuyo and Yuzuki go to school, Tsukuyo warns Yuzuki that no one should find out that Akegami lives with them because it could spark gossip. But it's too late. Tsukuyo's friends tell her that the gossip is that she has a boyfriend because they saw her kissing a guy in monk's clothes under the bridge, and she accidentally tells them that she didn't kiss him there, but before. This seems to confirm that she has a boyfriend, and her entire classroom finds out. To make matters worse, she forgot her lunchbox and Akegami came to school to deliver it to her. So she puts a bag over her head and passes him out, so no one sees him. When Akegami wakes up, he's in the infirmary and she tells him that he must leave when physical education class is over, so no one sees him. But at that moment, Tsukuyo's friends enter the infirmary. So she hides Akegami's body under her body in the bed, but her friends suspect. So she hugs him more to shrink him, causing him to suffocate on her big and he bites her. Before leaving, her friends ask her why she doesn't return to the archery club, but she says that she needed a break. When they leave, Akegami tells her that he will take care of all the housework at the temple so she can return to the archery club. At night, Tsukuyo remembers that she joined the archery club because she admired Yuzuki, but then she left it to take care of the temple and Tsukuyo left it too. The next morning, Yuzuki teaches Akegami how to use the bow as it is a meditation technique, and she tells him that she used to be in the archery club. Later, he goes to talk to Tsukuyo. Although she's in a bad mood, he tells her that he already did all the housework for the temple and now she has time to go to the archery club. After that, she goes out for a walk to clear her mind, but without realizing it, she walks to the archery club and remembers the good times, but she doesn't realize that Akegami followed her, and she runs away because she doesn't want to be seen together. They go to the river and she confesses that she left the archery club because she feels guilty about the situation Yuzuki is in. She had to leave the archery club to take charge of the temple, while Tsukuyo was in the club because she had fun. Then Akegami takes her to the temple and tells her that she is wrong. When they arrive, Yuzuki is with her bow and shows her that she is terrible. That's why she left the club, and Courage says that the love she has for Yuzuki blinded her and made her think she was good with the bow. Furthermore, Suzuki tells her that she has fun taking care of the temple, even though it is difficult, and tells her to do what she wants to do without worrying about the family's problems. At night, Tsukuyo tells Akegami that she decided to return to the archery club and asks him why he helped her, and he says that because of his father's reputation, he couldn't do many things and he doesn't want anyone to go through that. The next day, Tsukuyo forgets her lunchbox on purpose and Akegami goes to deliver it to the archery club, and Tsukuyo's friends think that he is her boyfriend, but she tells them that he is part of her family. Days later, Yuzuki weighs herself and can't believe what she sees, so she tells the other girls that the scale is cursed, and the other girls agree with her because they also weighed themselves and the results were not good. But no matter how much they make excuses, they realize that since Akegami arrived, they eat a lot because he cooks deliciously. So they decide to start doing Pilates to lose weight. The next day, they start their Pilates routine and get tired easily, so they are embarrassed to ask Akegami to cook diet food. But Courage surprises them by saying that she really likes his food and wishes he would never leave the temple, and suggests that one of them marry him to keep him in the temple forever. Suddenly, Akegami enters the room with Japanese sweets, and no one can refuse to eat them. That night, Courage writes in her diary about Akegami and how things changed for the better at the temple, and wonders if he would wait until she's an adult to marry her. The next day, Yuzuki asks Akegami to put pickled radishes in her food, and since Akegami sees her in a bad mood, he cooks the best lunch to date, but Yuzuki eats it with a straight face. Akegami can't handle the sadness because he thinks she doesn't like his food anymore. Later, Akegami finds Yuzuki with Kiki. She was training to be the head of the temple, and that is why she eats radishes, has a serious face, etc. This relieves Akegami, and Kiki offers to train him, and he gladly accepts and delights Yuzuki. Suddenly, Mia appears and asks to also be trained to be a priest, and Kiki accepts, but first, they must go through tudo. The training have the right to become a priest, since at this moment, they are just normal people living in a temple. This destroys Akegami, since his desires were chained because he believed that he was already a monk, but now that he knows that he is an ordinary boy, he fears that his desires will be unleashed. But Yuzuki appears and tells him that the desire to want enlightenment is the first step, so he is on the right path, and then she continue with her training. Then Kiki tells him that she is doing a harder training because she wants to achieve the result of years in 6 months. That moves Akegami, and he tells Yuzuki that he will take the same training with her. But Mia gets jealous and thinks that they are leaving her out. Suddenly, Hone arrives at the temple and asks to speak with Kiki, Yuzuki, and Akegami alone. He tells Kiki that if Yuzuki doesn't start her tudo in 3 months, he will break their engagement. The training for tudo begins, and it is more intense. First, they shouldn't wear colored since everything must be modest, so Mia and Yuzuki have to wear monk work clothes without anything underneath, which is very uncomfortable. Then they must meditate and connect with the air, and the one who has the best time is Akegami, since he wanted this type of training since he arrived, but he soon gets distracted by the moans of the girls when they are hit for not concentrating, so he's also struck. After that, Akegami thinks that copying sutras is a piece of cake, but several accidents keep happening and he is beaten by Yuzuki. At night, Akegami and Miya apologize to Yuzuki for getting in her way and tell her that they bought white underwear to stop having inappropriate accidents. But the night training is also not easy, because Kiki informs them that the three of them must sleep on a single tatami together. So the three of them do not sleep even a little, even though they are wrapped in separate blankets. The next day, Kiki locks them in a sauna and tells them that they must develop resistance to the opposite gender, and this is the only way Akegami thinks he is in heaven and hell, but the girls encourage him to finish the training. To distract himself, he starts talking about everything they have done so far. Miya confesses her secret desires, and so does he. Then they are ashamed of continuing to get in Yuzuki's way, since she says she has no hidden desires, even though she can't stop thinking about Akegami's body, and gets jealous seeing him interact with Miya. After that, Kiki asks them if they have already talked about their hidden desires, since a person who claims not to have those desires is the one with the most perverted mind, and Akegami and Miya do not stop looking at Yuzuki with their mouths open, although she continues to deny it. In the afternoon, Kiki tells them that it is time to rest since they have been training very hard, and Miya happily goes to spend time with Kagura, while Akegami does not want to have free time because he realizes that today is Christmas Eve. Yuzuki asks him why he is so scared, and he says that his father went out of control at Christmas Eve and invited all of his lovers to spend the night with him, and he heard everything from the other room even though he was a child. Then she takes him to the city to spend the day together, and he forgets about past Christmas. Plus, they have to buy gifts for tomorrow's Christmas party. They go to a Buddhist store, and Yuzuki shows him the different Buddhist beads, the formal ones, the informal ones, and the ones used in tudo ceremonies, but they are very expensive, so she hopes that one day she can buy them. The saleswoman is Yuzuki's family, and she thinks that they are a couple and begins to show them the wedding and fertility beads. But Akegami clarifies that they are not a couple. This confuses the saleswoman because Yuzuki is using makeup, is well-dressed, and she's red as a tomato. But Yuzuki buys a trinket to shut her up, and they leave. The next day, the girls talk about how they have all changed since Akegami arrived, and they are glad that they have abandoned the idea of kicking him out of the temple. But not all of them think the same. Kagura still wants him to leave. The next day is Christmas, and the girls celebrate it even though they live in a temple, and Akegami takes the opportunity to make a great Christmas banquet to thank them for everything they have done for him. After that, Yuzuki explains to him that they exchange gifts randomly, and Akegami starts to break out in a cold sweat because he bought a specific gift for her. So he prefers to tell them that he doesn't have gifts and offers them his organs to sell in the black market, but they do not accept and tell him that he can give coupons to do tasks in the temple. Then they start opening their gifts, and there are a lot of fun and gifts, but Kagura tells them that she has tickets for everyone to the hot springs. Later, Yuzuki and Akegami are finally alone, and she thanks him for bringing happiness to Christmas. Since her father moved out and her mother left to be head priest, they didn't have much fun at Christmas, and he also tells her that it is the best Christmas he has ever had, and to take advantage of the fact that they are alone, they exchange gifts. It turns out that they both bought prayer beads as gifts, and it is said that in Buddhist temples, when a couple gets married, the bride and groom exchange prayer beads instead of rings. They turn very red, but are interrupted by Kiki. Kiki tells them that there is a problem with Yuzuki's tudo ceremony, since the ceremony will be held at the temple and there will soon be an inspection, and if the inspection goes wrong, the ceremony can be cancelled. Yuzuki and Kamizuki panic because the temple has so many financial problems that even the main figure of the temple is repaired with duct tape. Still, Kiki insisted on going to the hot springs to relax before problems overtake them. When they arrive at the inn, they notice strange things like it is a luxury hot spring, and the owner cries with happiness when he sees Kagura. After that, Akegami is separated by the staff and changes his clothes elsewhere, and they give him a welcome drink. But in reality, it is a juice with tonic to increase virility, and they take him to the hot springs. Meanwhile, the girls begin to enjoy the hot springs, and taking advantage of the fact that Kagura has not arrived yet, Yuzuki and Tsukuyo ask Miya about Kagura, since she is always recording, and Miya tells them that Kagura has always been by her side since grade school, and when she decided to come to Japan and enroll in a temple, Kagura accompanied her too, and even though she is very secretive, she knows that she would never betray her because she is her best friend. On the other hand, Akemitsu is hiding behind the bushes because he was taken to the wrong hot spring, and he doesn't want to be seen or accused of being a peeping Tom. Kagura enters and realizes that he is hiding and asks the girls what they would do if Akegami sneaked in to peep at them. They say they will be angry, and Kagura adds fuel to the fire and says that it would be a terrible act of breaking trust. But the girls consider it better and say that if that happens, they would listen to him first, and Akemitsu starts to cry with relief and wants to tell them what happened and announce his presence, revealing him in all his glory. The girls scold him for what happened, but they forgive him because he was willing to reveal his presence and because they are a little delighted with his body. After that, they all decide to return to the temple, but Kagura wants to stay a little longer, and Miya decides to stay with her. Akemitsu wants to leave too, but Kagura forces him to stay. Then, Akemitsu goes to take an indoor bath and wonders why his body is still on, and Kagura offers to turn it off. He tries to escape from her, but she doesn't give up and takes off her towel to tempt him and starts kissing his ear. Akimetsu can't take it anymore and hits himself between his legs to avoid falling into temptation. Seeing that her plan has failed, Kagura tells Akimetsu that she rented the inn and gave him an aphrodisiac to tempt him. He doesn't understand why she does all this, and she confesses that she wants him to leave the temple because it interferes with their plan to raise an erotic queen, since she plans for Miya to sleep with at least 100 Japanese men and raise the name of the Kristoff family. Akimetsu tells her that Miya doesn't like her family's philosophy, but that doesn't matter to Kagura, and when Miya comes in and sees them together, Kagura hypnotizes her to sleep and does the same with Akimetsu. When he wakes up, he is tied to a chair and she says that she is a Baldwin and her family is an obedient dog from the Kristoff family. Then he tells Kagura that she must be loyal to Miya and do what she wants, fight against the wishes of her family. But Kagura makes him an irrefutable offer. She tells him that if he leaves the temple, she will pay his debt and pay for the repair of the main figure of the temple. The next day, Akimetsu can't stop thinking about Kagura's offer, but he still tries to focus on the day's task. The temple girls are going to make mochis for the parishioners, and Courage says that making mochis is dirty since they are the symbol of fertility, and the way they are made is very. Then Kagura says that the Book of Penance says that the correct way to do it is for the girls to dress as bunnies, and Akimetsu must help them by holding them from behind. Akegami first holds Miya, but when Tsukuyo also appears dressed as a bunny, he tries to escape, but is too late. Yuzuki sees them and gets angry because she thinks it was Akegami's idea to dress the girls in such an indecent way. After that, Akimetsu makes a miso soup because it's very cold and brings a plate to Kiki, who is watching the moon. She asks him what he will do after Yuzuki goes under the tudo, but he doesn't know what to answer. Days later, the girls and Akimetsu go to the shrine to give thanks and ask for a good new year. But Akimetsu makes them wear masks and sunglasses since he thinks there is rivalry between shrines and the temples, but Yuzuki tells him that it is no longer like that. While the other girls have fun guessing their future or receiving candy, Yuzuki tells him that she hopes they can come together every year and wishes they could protect the temple. Then Akegami remembers the oath he made to Hone and runs to find Kagura. Meanwhile, Kagura remembers how her friendship with Miya began, and seeing that Miya opposed her family's philosophy, Kagura decided to use reverse psychology and induced her to flee to Japan to awaken her. But Miya's mother demanded that she end her proof of Miya sleeping with more than 100 Japanese men, so Kagura started making collages with photos of Miya and her, making it seem like she slept with men, until Akimetsu arrived and Kagura feared that Miya would fall in love with him, since love is forbidden in the Kristoff family. At that moment, Akegami arrives and tells Kagura that he declines her offer, since repairing the main image of the temple is the first problem, and he does not plan to leave because he swore to always support Yuzuki. In addition, he promised to do the training with Miya. At that moment, Kagura gets angry because she knows that Akegami loves Yuzuki and in the future they will be together and Miya will be heartbroken. So she starts yelling at him, and Akimetsu says that it is the first time she has seen her angry, but it makes sense. Since she is angry on behalf of her best friend, Kagura gets angrier and kicks him between the legs and leaves. Outside the shrine, Miya tells the girls that maybe Kagura will come up with a way to make money, since she's a very dependable person, and hugs her. The next day, Akegami is woken up by Yuzuki telling him that she and Kiki are leaving, but Miya and Kuraga stay awake, which scares Akegami a lot. He goes to do the breakfast, and every time Miya mentions Kuraga's name, he trembles with fear, so Miya sets out to help them become friends and locks them in the warehouse. Kuraga first thinks about him and then telling the girls that he had an affair with her so they would throw him out of the temple, but he runs away to the farthest corner from her, and he says that he doesn't want to ruin their friendship, so she thinks that he's trying to flirt with her, and she comes up with a new plan. Kuraga plans to make Akegami fall in love with Miya and then bring him to the Kristoff family. Seeing that he is like them is a perfect plan. Days later, Tsukuyo wakes up hugging Courage since she was dreaming that Akegami kissed her again. She goes down to the kitchen and Akegami starts preparing breakfast with Miya's help, and she wonders when they became so close. Then Kagura starts showing her videos of Akegami and Miya together, but they are poorly recorded and in the dark where it seems like they are doing indecent things, but they are just playing Twister. After that, Tsukuyo calls Miya to question her and asks her if she likes Akegami, and Miya says that he is only her training partner since they are both fighting against their inner desires, but soon, she begins to describe Akegami's perfect body and ends by saying that she wants to spend the rest of her life by his side. Then Kagura ties Miya and Tsukuyo turns red with anger, and Kagura says that it seems like she is really jealous of Miya and Akegami's relationship, but Miya denies that there is a relationship and Tsukuyo says that there is proof and asks for the camera. At that moment, Akegami enters and Courage brings the camera watching the forbidden video, but she says that it seems like a fun game and Tsukuyo almost has a heart attack thinking that her little sister is watching an indecent video. The next day, Akegami is worried about the expenses that the temple has been making and decides to spend as little as possible in terms of meals. But to his bad luck, there is no more rice, and they have no money to buy more. Then Yuzuki tells him that they can go collect tribute since the temple owns some small land and the people who live there pay them with rice, and Mia laughs at him because she had already told him about it, and he didn't believe her. Yuzuki takes them with her since visiting the parishioners is part of the training, but most of the parishioners close the door in their faces and refuse to give them rice, until they arrive at the house of a woman with a broken leg, and she tells them to take whatever rice they want. While Yuzuki and Mia play with the woman's children, she tells Akegami that when Yuzuki's mother was the head priest, no parishioner failed to pay the tribute because she was scary, but since she went to live to the main temple, the parishioners are worried. At the end of the day, the woman gives them a lot of bags of rice, and Yuzuki is used to carrying many bags on her back, and Akegami remembers that he met her carrying bags of rice. Days later, Kiki tells them that she has been finding out how much it costs to repair the main figure of the temple, and at least they need 500,000 yen. Akegami panics, but Yuzuki says that she is sure that everything will be solved and trusts that everything will turn out well, and she will take over the Mikazuki temple. At night, Akegami decides to look for a part-time job without the girls finding out, but he needs his cell phone, so he goes to Yuzuki's room to borrow it. To his surprise, Yuzuki opens the door dressed as a maid and takes him into her room. He tries not to look at her beautiful body and asks to borrow her cell phone, but when she finds out that it is to look for a part-time job, she refuses to lend it to him because the temple is her responsibility. He doesn't agree because they need a lot of money, and she says she's willing to get 6 part-time jobs, and he tells her that's not possible, since he has worked part-time all his life and knows what it is like to work. But he tells her everything without looking at her face, so she accuses him of lying, but he can't take it anymore and tells her to look her in the mirror, and she turns red when she sees that her body is very exposed with the maid outfit. After that, she explains that the maid outfit belongs to her friend, and she lent it to her so she can see if she feels comfortable with the job. Then, Akegami starts massaging her back, and since she doesn't stop about the knots in her back, Sukryo comes in to stop whatever is happening there. Then Yuzuki says that she won the bet, but she's clearly about to fall asleep, so Akegami complains, but that makes Yuzuki angry, and she yells at him that she can do everything herself. Sukryo doesn't understand why they are fighting, but Akegami leaves the room asking her to go out with him tomorrow. Sukryo tries not to misinterpret what Akegami told her, but at night, she dreams that she is his girlfriend and they are soon going to get married. The next day, she dresses up and puts makeup for him, but Akegami tells her that he wants her to go with him to buy a cheap cell phone with a cohabitation plan. Sukryo is disappointed when she realizes that it's not really a date, but she still goes with him, and at the cell phone store, the saleswoman tells Akegami that she can't give him the cohabitation plan because Sukryo is a minor, but she can give him the couple's plan, which is even cheaper, and can send hundreds of messages for free. After that, Akegami thanks Sukryo for accompanying him and buys her the milk that she always drinks, although she is red because the saleswoman thought they were a couple. Finally, she tries to gather the courage to ask Akegami on a date, but she regrets it at the last minute and only asks to exchange cell phone numbers. At the temple, he tells her that she's the first girl he exchanged numbers with since the girls ran away from him when they found out who his father was. Sukryo tries not to misinterpret the situation, but her imagination goes crazy when he tells her that he needed a cell phone for secret activities. She thinks that he will send her messages to meet in her room at night, and in fact, at night he sends her a message, but is to thank her for her help. The next day, Yuzuki tries to pretend that she didn't see Akegami and Sukryo returning from their date, but she is very clumsy, and when he wants to talk to her, she runs away. Kiki asks Akegami what is going on, and he explains the situation, and Kiki is relieved to know that it is just a quarrel couple and asks him not to lose sight of his goal. At that moment, Carriage tells Kiki that someone came to ask for Raiden, and Kiki is very happy and explains to Akegami that Raiden is when a family wants to leave the temple and remove the graves of their relatives, but in compensation, they must pay a fine. But when Kiki arrives at the gate, the person has already left, and Yuzuki says that she did not charge them the fine because her mother told her that there was no need to charge that, but she feels bad about losing parishioners because it means that she is doing a bad job. Then Kiki tells her that she will not receive training today and leaves her with the task of finding out why. Then Yuzuki goes to take a nap and remembers that since she was a little girl, she wanted to run the temple, but she can't remember why. After that, she goes to the kitchen and asks the girls what housework needs to be done since she has no training today, but the girls tell her that Akegami already took care of everything. And not only that, he and Kiki went to do something and they weren't told what. Sukryo tells them that Akegami is not reading her messages, and the girls complain because they do not have his cell phone number, and Yuzuki leaves to look for what to do in the temple, but everything shines thanks to Akegami. Finally, she starts looking for part-time jobs, but she is not successful. Meanwhile, Akegami begs Kiki to train Yuzuki again, but she refuses. Suddenly, Akegami receives a call from Sukryo, telling him that Yuzuki has disappeared, and he runs out to look for her even though it is raining. He looks for her everywhere, but he doesn't find her, until it occurs to him to look for her under the bridge, and he was right. She's in a box under the bridge. After not getting a job, negative thoughts invaded Yuzuki, remembering how her mother told her that she can't take care of the temple, and no matter how hard she works, she still hasn't been able to achieve her goal. Then, Akegami gets teary-eyed seeing her so sad and hugs her, and that's what she needed, so she hugs him back. When she wakes up, she realizes that Akegami took care of her all night and asks him how he found her, and he tells her that his father once told him that no one can live alone, so he tried to isolate himself from everyone, and when he was rejected from the temple, he felt that he needed to be more alone, and that's why he took refuge under the bridge. And she was looking for that, to isolate herself from people, but he doesn't want that, he wants to be part of her life. Then she starts to cry and tells him that because of her, he has so much work that he can't do anything else, while she's not doing enough, but he tells her that he does everything for the temple because he loves the Mikazuki temple. And she finally remembers that ever since she was a little girl, she wanted to take charge of the temple because she loves it, and she thanks him for reminding her. Suddenly, the girls enter and begin to scold Yuzuki for isolating herself and tell her that they will also help in the temple. Kiki also enters and Yuzuki asks her to train her again because she already realized her mistake. She kept thinking about what others thought of her and lost sight of her goal. Then Kiki approves her and says that when she recovers, she will go back to training. In the afternoon, Yuzuki tells Akegami that she will ask the parishioners for donations, since that is what she should have done from the beginning, and says that everyone will help protect the temple, and he agrees with her. Days later, Kiki takes the girls to visit the temple supporters and asking for donations, while Yuzuki goes to school and Akegami stays doing chores at the temple, and she tells him that she trusts him.